Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. I've been running for a few years now and have the privilege of meeting many incredible runners on my travels all across the country. This podcast is intended to share those amazing conversations. And welcome back. I am here in Cambridge, Massachusetts with Amanda Nurse. Amanda, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. So let's kick it off with the million-dollar question. Who is Amanda?
Oh, Amanda is a mom to a 2-year-old, a marathon runner. I've run 21 marathons, soon to be 22. And yeah, a Bostonian, I guess, at heart at this point. I'm originally from Portland, Maine. I have 2 sisters, but I've been living in Brooklyn for the last 10 years. And yeah, Boston's certainly home at this point.
That's awesome. And so you got into running casually, I'd say, and now you're taking it a little more serious. And you've taken almost an hour off of the time from your first marathon to where you're at now?
Yeah. So I ran my first marathon in 2010. It was with the Dana-Farber Marathon Challenge team for Boston. And truthfully, before that, I don't think I'd ever run more than a 10K. Kind of the marathon of Maine, in my opinion, was the Beach to Beacon 10K. And that was kind of what I had always aspired to run. And I ran that my senior year of high school and felt like $1 million. I had run a 10K. It's like, 6 miles, but never thought I would run anything more than that. And then I played lacrosse at Bowdoin College and realized that I was actually running a lot more in lacrosse than I really thought I was, and found running when I graduated college, moved to Boston, and just figured I didn't really have a hobby at the time and I wanted to meet some new friends, so why not run the Boston Marathon? And so in 2010, I joined that team, ran my first race, and the rest is history. I think I ran a 3:26 that year and was really just shooting for sub 4 and to enjoy the race. And I enjoyed every moment of it. I crossed the finish line and I was ready to sign up for my next one. So I think since then, I've pretty much run 2 marathons a year. And it feels weird when I'm not training for one at this point. So yeah.
Cool. And you're training for a pretty big one at the moment, right?
Yeah, I'm training for my second Olympic marathon trials right now.
So how's that process going?
It's going awesome. Truthfully, I was never really a runner that had a coach for the most part. When I was on the Dana-Farber team, I ran under Jack Foltz, who is the 1976 Boston Marathon winner. And he's amazing. But he was also coaching 500 runners at the time. It's a big team, and I never had an individual coach. So, back in 2015, when I qualified for my first Olympic trials, I hired our good friend, Terry Shea, who was previously the BAA assistant coach. He's a really good friend of my husband's. And within 9 weeks, I saw a big change in my running. I went from a 246 to a 240 in just a couple months. And then that was how I qualified for the trials. He stopped taking marathon runners for, I think probably the last 2 years. He hasn't really been taking on any new clients. So I decided to just do my own self-coaching, and found that I did a lot better when I had somebody watching over me and giving me workouts, even though I'm a personal coach myself. I found that I don't push myself to my limits the way that I like to push others. So I hired a friend of mine, Caitlin Goodman, who's an incredible runner herself. She's qualified in the 5,000 meter, the 10,000 meter, and the marathon distances in the Olympic trials. And
future podcast guest as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. She'll be great. And I started with her this past June in 2019. And I have just loved being coached by her. She's kind of a lower mileage runner the same way I am. And so she just knows kind of like how to train me. I think with my busy schedule and my son, it's a lot to try to fit in, 80 plus mile weeks. So I'm probably capping out at 85 miles per week in this training cycle. And it's been working out great. So I've seen some big improvements in my time since being coached by her. And I love just the direction I feel like my running's going in right now. And I found that it's really nice to have someone see your potential more than you can see your own.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the run a couple weeks ago, and when someone believes in you emotionally, but also like they know it from a data backed standpoint, it's pretty, I don't want to say validating, but it's a good confirmation.
Oh, definitely. Sure. Like she was telling me to run, 5:30 pace for 2K repeats the other day. And I looked at the workout. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. But I got out there and I just, was looking at my watch. I'm like, no, I can't do this. Yeah. Like, this is awesome. And I never would have challenged myself that way. So it's nice to have someone else tell you can do something, and then you can actually see it, the progress being made.
For sure. So you mentioned you've got a pretty busy schedule. You're a coach yourself. You have a 2-year-old. You're married. You have, a lot of clients as well. Let's talk about the balance between all of the different hats that you wear. How do you manage that?
So it takes a village, that is for certain. My son goes to daycare 3 days a week, and he loves it, honestly. He also spends some time with both grandmothers during the week. So I do have some time to myself that I'm able to dedicate to my running. But it is like, it makes a big difference when you're a parent. You have to kind of parcel out exact time. Like, okay, this is my hour and a half I get, to do my run, and then I have to go pick him up from school or something. And so I think it makes me a more dedicated runner to know that I have certain times of the day that I can do a workout, and there are certain times that I definitely can't. So I feel more structured, and I love kind of having a bunch of different hats that I wear. Like I said, I'm a personal run coach. And I have 25 marathon specific clients right now. I am also working for New York Roadrunners. I'm doing their virtual training program. I'm a social media influencer. I run professionally for Adidas and do a lot of their social media stuff with being an ambassador for them. So there's just a lot of things that I'm doing. And I'm really grateful for my husband, who's so supportive and keeping me healthy too, because he's a sports chiropractor.
So like a live-in chiro.
So yeah, unfortunately for him, it's like he sees 25 patients in a day, comes home, and I'm like, but Ian, my shoulders hurt. So no, it definitely takes a village. And I think I feel very fortunate that I have the kind of lifestyle and job that I have, but I also couldn't see it any other way at this point. I love what I do, and it's great.
How did you get to a place like that?
Yeah. So in my wildest dreams, I never thought I'd be a run coach. But when I started seeing my own progress, I went from a 3:26 to now a 2:40 in the marathon distance. I started getting a lot of emails about, hey, would you consider coaching me? I see your progress. It's inspiring. I'd like to do something similar myself, or I want a BQ. That's my lifelong dream. And so I took a few clients on just on the side. And at the time I had my master's in social work, and I was a clinical social worker at Tufts Medical Center. And I loved working with clients, seeing or helping, individuals that were in the hospital, but it wasn't as fulfilling for me because I was in critical care. And so once I left the floor, I would always wonder, like, how are they doing? Right. Like, did I do enough? And I like seeing the progress that I'm seeing with runners that are being trained by me. So I started doing that just on the side, and then realized, hey, I could actually make a living out of this, and I'm getting enough clients that it makes sense to be doing this more full time. So yeah, like I said, I do wear a lot of hats. There's a few different jobs that I kind of have, but my main priority right now is my personal run coaching that I can do from home.
Awesome. Yeah. And let's talk about social media. You mentioned you do it for yourself. You do it for Adidas a little bit. Yeah. How do you approach that? How do you approach that?
So I guess I started really with it maybe in 2014 or so. I just started, posting how my runs went, and, my training and my progress. And I would start tagging. At the time I was running for the Boston Athletic Association. So I would start tagging, hashtag Adidas runner or whatever. And, that caught their eye. And so they asked me to go to an event out in LA, which was actually for EIM, which is like Entertainment Industry Management or something like that. So it was the launch of a new shoe, the Pure Boost. And that it kind of took off from there. Honestly, I started getting more kind of sponsorship opportunities. Adidas asked me to be one of their ambassadors for Adidas Women. And I think with my own running success and just kind of documenting how my training's going, I've gotten a lot of other followers, now new moms that are runners, that just like to be inspired to kind of, hey, you're not going to be the same runner you were before, kid. You actually might be better.
Right.
And I think I can speak to that I actually am a better runner, and I am more confident in my abilities, and I feel like less anxious before races and in workouts now, being a mom, because you just have a totally different outlook on life. And
why do you think that is?
I think for me now, like I always used to use running as kind of an outlet, or at least I would say that it was an outlet for stress. I would have a hard work day as a social worker, and then I would go out for a run and be like, well, I'm using, it's just because I want to stay in shape. But no, really, it was to clear my mind.
Yeah.
And I think I never really thought about it like that so much until I had Riley. And then I'm like, well, I need this time to myself as a mom. Like I enjoy going for runs with him in the stroller, and that's great too. And we listen to Sesame Street on repeat. But I love having the time to myself and to dedicate something to me.
Yeah.
And so when I see personal growth in my running, I'm like, that's my time to shine, to do something specifically for me. So I don't think of it as much now as like, oh, the pressure of, winning a race or completing a workout in the pace. I think more of it as like, I'm just going to do my best, and I'm going to enjoy it because this is time that I get just to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you come back after giving birth to Riley? What was the process like for that?
Well, I'll backtrack by saying that social media can be a blessing and a curse for so many reasons. But for me, I was looking at a lot of my running friends and people that I aspire to in the running community, and seeing them post pictures of them running at 40 weeks pregnant, and crushing it. And I was like, oh, that's going to be me. I'm going to enjoy running throughout my pregnancy. Why wouldn't I? I'm strong, like I'm capable. And it was like a hard stop after like 16 weeks. I ran the Boston Marathon, and felt fine. And then literally 2 weeks later, I had really bad round ligament pain, like just didn't feel comfortable. So I literally walked for like 20 weeks of my pregnancy journey, and wasn't really loving it. I was feeling really out of shape. So I was not confident that I was going to come back strong. And I remember I was quoted in this book about the Boston Marathon, where I said, I had Riley in my arms. He was probably 2 months old. And I said, yeah, my big goal for this year is to re-qualify for the Olympic trials. And I said that, and I was like, that's probably not going to happen. Like, look at me, like I'm not in shape. And I'm sad that I thought that way at the time, because
But you still said it.
I said it, but I was like, do I really believe it?
Yeah.
And at that time, I was going to be running the Boston Marathon 5 months postpartum, but I didn't know. I thought maybe I was going to run a 3:30 instead of what I ended up running. And I think what I did was, at 6 weeks postpartum, I got the clearance from my OB, and I waited deliberately until 6 weeks, because I knew that I was going to be more prone to stress fractures. My husband sees this all the time. Women come back too soon from having a baby and kind of jump right back into running. And you get a lot of injuries. Our bodies are very different, and they're still healing for many, many weeks. So I waited until 6 weeks, and then at the 6 weeks mark, I brought my running clothes to my OB appointment. She cleared me to run, and I ran home.
You literally couldn't wait any longer.
I couldn't wait any longer. At that point, it had been like 8 months of no running or something crazy like that. So that felt like crap, to be honest. Like, I did not feel that good. I think I was pushing like 9:30 pace, and I was like, wow, maybe it's not going to get any better. But a friend of mine, Robin Arzon, who works for Peloton, she had this like kind of crazy December challenge where it was like 3 miles for 31 days. So 3 for 31. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to try. And even if I have to, walk every minute, I'm going to do it. So I ran 3 miles for every day in December. And by the end of December, I was like from going
Was
from
this
9:30.
2017?
Yeah. I went from running like 9:30 pace to probably like 8-minute pace and not huffing and puffing and not having to stop. So I guess the key to my message here is like, just stick with it. Your body does remember, how you ran before pregnancy. And I think you bounce back a lot faster than you think you will. Like our bodies are amazing. And it's pretty incredible that I felt good enough to run just a few months later in the Boston Marathon. Off of pretty short training.
That's awesome. So another guest I've had on the podcast, Neely Spence Gracie, who you'll be sharing a start line with in a couple weeks, talked about this with her son Athens, and it was fascinating. She talked about the exact same thing. Like, you carve out time in your schedule, and that's when you get it done. And if you don't get it done that time, it's not happening. I had a conversation with our CEO about this, and he was commenting on somebody not saying that they didn't have enough time in their day to do all the things they wanted. He's like, try having 4 kids or 5 kids or whatever, or 3 kids or 2 kids or 1 kid. And he's like, you'll figure it out. Like, you'll find the time. And I'm sitting here with no kids and I'm single, and I'm like, how the hell do you guys do it? It's crazy. It's so impressive. And I think it's amazing that like it can be done with all of these different variables or different time commitments. So
yeah, you just make it work. Like when I was training for the 2018 Berlin Marathon, that was where I was going for my Olympic trials time. And I think I did most of my training runs with Riley in a stroller. And I chalked up my time. I ran a 2:41 there. And I swear it was because I was basically doing resistance training all
the time.
long. Yeah. Like he was pretty young. I just, would throw him in the stroller, bundle him up, and we'd go out for like 6 to 10 miles at a time.
And come race day, you'd lose 70 pounds.
Yeah. No, seriously, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I always like applaud women now. Like I always say, nice work when I see a woman go by with a double stroller, because single is hard enough.
Well, that's awesome. So another question that I wanted to ask about was, so you work with Adidas. Was there anything related to your pregnancy that you communicated with them, or how did that look?
Yeah. So when I first started doing some work with them, I got a contract through Adidas Women. And this was prior to getting pregnant. So interestingly enough, I didn't know any better. It's like any company, you reach out, they reach out to you and they say, this is what we want to pay you this. We want you to be our ambassador. And I wrote back like, I'm absolutely would love to. This was right after my first Olympic trials in 2016. I was like, I would absolutely love to. I do just want to give you guys a heads up though. Like we're thinking about having a baby in the next year. Does that change anything? And it was like a pretty quick response. Like, yeah, that changes a lot. Like that's probably not what we're looking for right now, but we'll get back to it at another point. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
Mostly because, I felt that most women are afraid to even say that they're trying or are pregnant. And so I felt like I was being the bigger person, just being like, hey, I just want to
give you a year heads up.
And then it turned out that it actually took us over a year to get pregnant. So that whole year that I could have been like having
under
a
contract.
Pretty awesome contract, I didn't have anything because I had told them that I was maybe trying to get pregnant.
So why do you think that is? It's literally the most humanizing, and I mean that like in every sense of the word, the most humanizing aspect of life.
Yeah. I mean, look at this, like dream maternity. Like
I'm
like so proud of the women that have kind of been such pioneers in that, because it really, it stinks. And this was before, all of the like kind of dream maternity stuff came out and the contract changes, to include maternity leave.
Right.
And so, I was really hurt, by that, but I will say I work for them now, and, they truly like rectify that situation. So basically I got pregnant. I was still in contact with Adidas Running. I ended up getting a new contract with them when I was still pregnant. So they didn't care. You know, at that point they were like, no, we think you're like a normal person that is still an elite runner and can kind of speak to a big group of women. Aspirationally, yeah. I'm kind of the norm, but also I am kind of more of an elite runner at this point. So it's cool to kind of straddle that line. And so, yeah, I signed a contract with them more as an athlete now. And I get to do some really cool events and things with them. But more than anything, like a really cool thing that I'm getting to do now is that they are sending me, like, I'm getting the elite kit that like Mary Keitany's wearing. Like, I feel a little weird to be wearing the same kit as Mary Keitany. I'm not nearly anywhere near her caliber and never will be. But it's really cool that they put, you know, they think highly enough of me as a mom and an athlete and kind of just a runner in the women's running community, that they feel like I can represent them in that way. So
that's awesome. All right, a couple more related questions, and then we'll change topics a little bit. We have a fan-submitted question here. What is the best place in Boston to get coffee with a 2-year-old? I think you know who asked this one.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I think it has to be Cafe Fix, and this has to be from Mark Couture. And
you're right.
It can only go with a blueberry muffin.
Nice.
Yeah. So
you mentioned Mark. You share a lot of miles with Mark. I share a lot of miles with Mark. Let's talk the Boston running community. Do you do a lot of running with other people?
Yeah. But I will preface by saying, and Mark will love this story, we met in a very unconventional running way. He is the friendliest runner in Boston, I think. And he was being treated by my husband, Ian, and was like, oh, I'm looking to run this time in the marathon. And Ian was like, oh, you should do some miles with my wife. And I had never met Mark before. I'd heard of him because everyone knows Mark in the Boston running community. But I was running one day, like just tunnel vision, not even paying attention. And like, he literally goes out to slap my hand. He's like, hey, we should run together. And so he like turned around and like continued on my miles with me. I'm like, I don't know this guy at all, but sure. Okay, whatever. And so we do some miles together. And then literally the rest is history. I think we just ended up meeting up for like multiple runs per week. He shared many miles with Riley and I. He is a saint for listening to C is for Cookie on repeat. And he's even pushed the stroller sometimes. But we always end with coffee at Cafe Fix, because it's right around the corner from us and Riley enjoys Mark's company. So, that is the Boston running community. I feel very fortunate that this is where we live, because I've been to cities where I've tried to go for a run and people look at you crazy when you're like running down the street or doing some type of workout. Here it's so normal. There's so many people to run with and so many groups and organizations. So, you know, I've run with the Heartbreakers. I've run with groups of women that are from all different teams that just have the same common goal. You know, I'll go out for stroller miles with Mark and you. So
next time we're not going as far.
Yeah.
I'm not going as far.
I know we kind of deviated from the plan, but yeah, no, I love that. And I love how sometimes I'll go out for a run, not meaning to meet up with anyone. And then you just see someone on the course and you turn around and you join them for some miles. So I love that about Boston.
Yeah. And Mark in particular, so I run with him pretty much every Tuesday. And or most Tuesdays, and he'll know like between 3 and 10 people every run, and he'll say hi to another 10 people and give high fives, and it's the best. What's your favorite section on the Boston Marathon course?
Ooh. So I live in Washington Square now. So mile 23 has been really important to me for the last few years that I've run it, because in 2018, when the weather was so crappy, my Ian and Riley and my parents and Ian's parents were all still out in the rain with huge umbrellas and snowsuits, like watching me come through. And so I knew I just had to get there. And, you know, this was a celebration run for me. Like I wasn't really going for time. So I was really looking forward to those miles. And plus it's all downhill from there. So that's really important to me. And also, this past year was my first year running in the elite field for Boston. So it was like, I just had my eyes on getting to 23, and I knew that I could get through 3 more at that pace if I could get to them. And then of course, Heartbreak Hill Running Company always has like so many people out there cheering that I look forward to that, mile 20. And I think probably my other favorite part is around in Natick. We actually canned some Wellness in Motion beer last year at this random place in Natick. And we ran into, I think they're called the Mile 10 Beer Company. We met the owners of that company, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to cheer for you. We're right at the Natick line."
Is that along the train tracks? No, not.
Yeah, it's close to that. But I was like keeping my eyes peeled. It was between my miles 9 and 10, I think. And I was just waiting for that big cheer section. And so I will always be excited to see them there now, to kind of like have these groups that I look forward to along the way.
It's so fun. The first year I ran it, I wrote on my forearm, like 8 different, like mile 3, mile 5, mile whatever, and who would be there. And it's like a super awesome way to jump back and forth and stay motivated as time goes on.
Yeah. And I forgot one. My parents always go to mile 16, like right by Newton Wellesley Hospital. And so that was always the, like, just get there, get there. But now that we live in Washington Square, it's a little easier for everyone to just hang out there.
Nice. So you just ran Houston, and you ran a 1.5-minute PR in the half marathon. You ran a 75:06 or 1:15:06. What's it like going that fast for that far?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what I was capable of going into that race. I knew I was going to be running a PR because I felt like I was much more in shape than I was when I ran a 1:16:30 back in October. And I knew this was a fast course because there's so many people running. I mean, I still came in 56th female running a 1:15.
Wow.
56. So yeah, it was super fast. Like all the women running in the trials were running
like 69.
Yeah, it was just insane. So yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. I think my favorite part that I'll always remember is that the starting line is crazy because it's half marathoners and half marathoners. And it's a madhouse because there's so many fast people. You're like, well, do I hang behind the fast marathoners or am I like where do I go? So I was a little scared that I wasn't going to find like a pack and I was going to go out too fast or too slow. But somehow I ran into Allie Kiefer and Alexi Pappas, and Allie was actually pacing the 2:30 marathon group. And so I knew if I could hang with her for those 8 miles, where then the marathon course goes one way and the half goes the other, if I could hang with them in that pack, if I could get to 8 at that rate, I was going to be in
5:42.
Yeah,
5:44.
I was going to be in good shape. And so we had some fast miles. We were running like, I think my fastest was like 5:36, and we had a bunch of those in there. But we had like either a tailwind or a side wind, and then around mile 8, they left, and there was most of the people in our group were actually running the marathon. And so there was only like me and 4 other women, maybe like 1 other guy that were in a pack, going for the half. And all of a sudden, like we turned into the headwind, like, our pace,
the wind out
like,
the sails,
8 seconds per mile. And I was kind of like, oh shoot. Like I knew I was on pace for 1:14 something if I could hold on. And we just hit this headwind, and it was like so hard to hold the pace.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I know I shouldn't be disappointed because it's still a really big PR, but when you're so close to the next number down, like I was close to a 74. But it gives me ammo for the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
The photos out of Houston were so cool. I saw a bunch of like Sarah Hall surrounded by this massive pack of people running in the marathon. And it was just like, what a cool opportunity that you can run with athletes of that caliber and share the same space in either the same distance or half the distance or twice the distance. So I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is why I'll always remember this race and why I loved it so much was I was like, there's no way in hell I would ever be able to run Allie Kiefer's pace. Like, if she was running the half, she'd be running like 6 minutes faster.
Right.
But she's running the full at my half marathon pace. So of course I can hold on to that.
I don't know. We did some 7:15 miles with her on the marathon course.
But yeah, like
I chased her up Heartbreak and got dropped, but
but it was a really cool experience. And actually, I sound such a fangirl right now, but at one point we were running all together and she was the pacer. So she probably wasn't even like working that hard, but she went and got her elite bottle from the water station. And I was part of the ADP, the American Development Program. So I didn't get bottles. And so, I missed one of the water stops just because of where we were we were kind of like on one side of the course, and she holds up her bottle. She's like, anyone need a bottle? And I was like, me, I need a bottle. So I shared Allie Kiefer's water bottle at mile 5.
Isn't she the friendliest person ever?
Yeah, she's really nice.
Was Alexi telling haikus during the race?
No, she was pretty focused, actually. I don't think she made a peep, or at least she didn't when I heard her. But, she had an incredible race.
She had like a 9-minute PR.
I think she ran like 2:34.
Yeah.
And she looked so strong until we left it at 8 miles and I went one way and she went the other. I was like, wow, it's amazing that they're going to hold this pace for another half. Like there's no way I could ever do anything more than just the half at this pace.
Yeah, I think it's so cool to share miles like that in that capacity and at that speed.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to most about the trials?
I think, so for me, and I'm pretty transparent about this, I have told a lot of people, I feel like the trials for me are a really big celebration of all the hard work I've put in this year, because we do want to have more kids. And I think, probably it's no surprise there's going to be a lot of women that run in the trials that are going to be like, okay, now it's time to think about babies because it's another 4 years till we get to do this.
Right.
And so I've been telling Caitlin, my coach, I'm like, I'm just going to put it all out there. Like if I blow up in mile 20 because I've been running like too fast, like,
great.
Okay, at least I tried.
Yeah.
Like I want to go out with a vengeance, and not to go out with a vengeance, but I might be taking a little break at some point in the next couple of years. So yeah, I guess I'm just using this as like going as
just
hard
shooting
as I
your
can.
shot.
Just going for it. And that's kind of how I felt at Houston too. Is just go for it. Like if I was going to blow up after doing a bunch at 5:40 pace, well, it's still good training for the trials. Like who cares? I went for it.
So my coach uses that line, shoot your shot. And it's like, if you come up short, better than not trying at all.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be some fireworks down there in Atlanta. I think it's going to be amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think the trials are interesting too, because everyone goes out really hard and fast and they're like, this is my opportunity. Like, and it's anyone's game, like the top 3 women are going to the Olympics and anything could happen. Like, look, when Des won Boston, like she said she had felt like crap that day and she was so far back. And then somehow, people dropped out. She just continued on. Like anything could happen. Not saying I'm going to make the Olympic team, but it's like, I probably have about 75 women ahead of me that would be probably, going to take my spot. But yeah, no, it's like, I think I'm going to be focused more on placement and just kind of, shooting big. And when I ran in the trials in 2016, I was, running with people and then they would fall back. I mean, the heat really gets you. The hills are going to get some people. So
you ran
really
in LA?
Game. Yeah.
That was a hot one.
Yeah. They didn't have enough water. It was on a highway. It was at noon. Yeah, it was interesting. I think Atlanta's a little bit more prepared.
So do you think that the training you're doing now puts you in a good place for a course like Atlanta?
I hope so. I think we are definitely in a good place, like Boston with the Newton Hills. To be training on the hills will definitely impact my race. Some people are training in flat places like Florida or something, and then they go to the trials and it's hilly, and you have to be doing some hills in order to have a good race. But
and then there's someone
the
like
downhills are important too.
Yeah, and then there's someone like Jim Walmsley who's doing 30,000 feet of climbing every week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So somewhere in between. So what do you think about at mile 20 of a marathon or mile 10 of a half marathon?
A lot of things. I think about my son, my husband. I think about just staying in the moment, staying in that mile, and just breaking it up into smaller chunks, because I used to do this thing where, the first few miles of the race being like, oh my gosh, I still have 11 more miles to go. Like, how am I going to be able to hold this pace? Well, it makes it a lot more manageable if you say, just stay in the moment, just get through this mile and reassess. And the thing about distance running, half marathons, probably ultras, haven't done one yet, is that it's a roller coaster. There are miles where you feel like crap, and then the next mile you feel okay, and you just have to stick with it. So I work with Emily Saul as my sports psychologist, and she's amazing. And one thing she said to me, we had a meeting right before Houston. She was like, have you ever done any physical visualizations? And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, well, think about when you're feeling crummy in a workout or in the race, and you have these negative thoughts like, oh, there's no way I'm going to be able to hold this pace, or, I suck. Think of those as a physical object, like a weight that you're holding in your hand weights. And when you have those negative thoughts, what you can do is pretend like you're dropping the weights. Just let those go. And then think of something positive, like, okay, just, I'm going to stick with this mile. I'm strong. I'm capable of this pace. And think of those as like boosters on your shoes or rockets or something like that. So I did do that at Houston, and it really did make a difference. I second guessed myself a few times being in the group that I was in. Like, okay, why am I running with Alexi Pappas and Ali Kiefer? Like, maybe I'm way out of my comfort zone here. But then I looked down at my watch and I wasn't. Like, I deserved to be there.
Yeah.
I was a 1:15 marathoner on that day, and I felt really good crossing the finish line. So a lot of it is mental, I think. And if you can find ways like mantras or visualizations or just ways to keep your mind active and positive, as opposed to going down this negative spiral that can happen in distance racing, I think it makes a huge difference.
For sure. I wasn't going to go there, but you said it, so I'm gonna go there. You said you haven't done an ultra yet, and I know we've talked about some 50Ks and stuff in the past. So tell me more about that comment you just made.
Yeah. So, well, actually, I've been pretty inspired. Des did an interview with the Clean Sport Collective that I listened to the other day, and she was talking to Kara, and Kara asked her, would you ever do an ultra? And she said, yeah, of course. Like, that's kind of the next
right.
step, like, why not? But I started thinking about it last year because a good friend of mine, Sarah Bard, she's an incredible ultra and trail runner at this point. And
today's her birthday, I think.
Oh, happy birthday, Sarah. But she said to me like, oh, I think you'd be really good at the 50K, but you can qualify for the national team by using your marathon time. And my marathon time qualified me. And I hadn't done an ultra yet, but I was like, well, I'll just submit an application to see if I could be part of the 50K team that was going to be in Romania last June. And I think they considered me, but because I hadn't run an ultra, I wasn't high up on the list. So I think my next step is that I would love to be like, who wouldn't want to be on a US team? I think that I would really like to try a 50K and see if I could have a qualifying time to then reapply for the US team, because yeah, it's like every 4 years you get excited about the Olympic trials, but there's other things to be excited about. And I think that's like a new challenge for sure.
Cool. So on this podcast, I talk with Kara Goucher about her entry into trail running and ultra running. And she said, I think 3 times that the first trail marathon she did was harder than childbirth.
I believe it.
And then I wrongly told her that the North Face 50K was like a track meet ultra. And she was like, I was cursing you during that race. Like, this is not a track meet. Like, what kind of track meets are you a part of? You think this is a track meet? But there are definitely some fast trail races that you can do. So are you thinking road ultra, trail ultra?
Oh yeah, sorry. I should have prefaced by saying I was talking about the 50K road. Trails I am interested in, but I also am very prone to ankle rolls.
Yes.
And I haven't yet found the right shoes for that, though Adidas did send me a pair of Terex, I think they're called. I haven't tried them yet.
Yeah, they have an awesome trail team.
Yeah. So, no, I'm definitely not counting it out, but I think probably my next logical step would be 50K road and then maybe venture
that seems logical.
Trail.
What's your recovery routine like?
I love massage. So I get a lot of massages at Wellness in Motion. And we have Normatex, and I also have a Hypervolt, which I use on my own sometimes. And then I'm really into Epsom salt baths. And after any workout and long run, I always have my Momentous protein shakes. And honestly, that combo usually works pretty well. But I also am a person that only does one workout per week and then my long run and then a bunch of easy days in there. So I think I actually get a lot more recovered because I have more recovery time between workouts too.
So let's talk about that. I think there are a lot of people that are doing 2, 3, 4 workouts in a week. Maybe not 4, but 3.
Yeah.
I used to do 2 in a long run. And now I'm doing the same thing as you. 1 on Wednesday and a long run, sometimes with some work in it. What does your week look like?
So like this week, because I ran a race on Sunday, I had Monday off, which was very welcomed. Usually that's kind of like my bar 3 or strength training day, usually coupled with some easy miles. Tuesday would be more like an aerobic 8 to 10 with some strides to get ready for my workout. And then,
by the way, Amanda and I did strides together. I have never seen anyone look so smooth at a 5-minute pace.
Gosh, thank you. I think it was just that we were doing them together, maybe a little more competitive.
Set some course records going through the Boston Common.
We should do that again.
We should.
But yeah, no. And then Wednesdays is my workout day. So it's like anywhere from like 10 to 14 miles of work. Well, with some warm up and cool down. But, like for instance, I did 8 by a mile or, 4 by 2K. I did 2 by 5 miles a couple weeks ago, which felt really good at marathon pace. So yeah, they're like longer workouts. And then Thursday would be again, like aerobic, longer miles, Friday, easy miles. And then Saturday or Sunday is my long run. And the other day's easy. So lots of easy.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's the secret.
Yeah.
What do you wish you knew 5 years ago or when you started running that you know today?
Oh, I think honestly, to not take it so seriously. I know that sounds silly because when I first started, I was more of like a recreational runner, but it seems almost like it's reversed. It's like when I first started to see a little bit of success in the marathon, I got so like overwhelmed. I started worrying about what other people were going to think if I had a bad race, or like getting nervous to go to track workouts with other people in case I couldn't keep up. And it's like, at the end of the day, nobody cares. Like they really don't. And I think it would be totally different if I felt like, this was my profession. And if you don't win, a world major race or something, like you're not going to get new sponsorship. But I feel lucky that, we're kind of in this space where we're like good runners, but we're not like we don't totally rely on it as our profession. So yeah, I guess like more recently, I've just been focusing on why I'm doing it and being happy I'm doing it because it's just something I love and I am competitive and it feeds that part of my soul, but also like it's such a stress reliever and it's me time. And so the best I'm ever going to do is just like, or when I have the best results, it's when I'm really just focused on me and having no expectations for what other people care or see or whatever. It's just about like doing my personal best. So yeah, I wish that I had always felt this way, but I do think that it's really helped to be seeing a sports psychologist. And also just after having a kid, I think I feel a little less pressure, which is a weird thing to say, but I do feel like I used to always think like, oh, there was a time where I was like, this is the biggest thing in my life.
Right.
It's like, it's not. But I also am seeing more success now because I've let that go a little bit. So, yeah.
Cool. What's your why?
My why for running? Because, it's such an integral part of my life now. It's part of my work. It's part of my, self-care. Probably my biggest why is self-care. I think it feeds like so many parts of me, like I just said, the competitive side, I love like setting goals for myself and like attaining them. So I'm like very type A. Like if I'm supposed to be doing 10 miles today, if I do 9, I'm going to feel really bad about myself. Like I just need to have an order to things. So it keeps me organized and structured, but for the most part, it just gives me like a time to de-stress, to listen to a podcast or to hang out with friends that I don't usually get to see. So yeah.
Cool. Give some high fives along the river.
Yeah.
Awesome. Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Amanda Runs Boston. That's my Instagram. Also, amandarunsboston.com is my coaching website and blog. And I have Twitter, but I don't really use it. It's just Amanda Runs Boss.
Cool. Yeah. And 30-second plug for Wellness in Motion.
Ooh, Wellness in Motion Boston is a multidisciplinary chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, physical therapy. Yeah, all types of sports related treatment. We are in Boston, so Downtown Crossing and Back Bay, and then also Brookline and soon to be Fort Point, though I probably shouldn't be saying that. So come find us.
Awesome. And I've been going to Wellness in Motion for couple years now, and I see Brian on a weekly basis and all of the massage therapists on a regular basis, and it's definitely kept me going. So thank you guys for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Of course. And thanks for joining today. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next week on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.